Hi guys, this is Julia from WooTrade and you're watching the second Wootopia community call. We're doing it every month to catch your feedback and stay transparent. Today we're going to discuss WooTrade's business development, digital assets, spot and futures trading, Woo token staking for retail and institutional clients, as well as expanding our team and moving towards decentralized governance. Welcome!
Yeah, I think that answers are great. I'm wondering, when things like Uniswap and SushiSwap, they start wanting to hook into Woo, like, how are they going to do that? Is that something that y'all are going to have to integrate for them, or are they going to be able to do it themselves?
Yeah, that's the next logical question. And obviously SushiSwap, we announced this a while back. They have these things called franchise pools. And franchise pools basically allow, CeFi platforms. It was designed for CeFi platforms to bring liquidity into their pools and to support their existing liquidity. The issue with that is you kind of have to play by SushiSwap's rules, which also means giving a fee to the sushi holders. But I mean, this is something we're willing to explore. We're very eager to explore. And Uniswap is a completely different thing because their V3 allows for our market makers to actively provide liquidity, which means we can provide within a certain range of price, which is essentially like what WooFi Pools is doing anyway. So what we're doing now is we're trading on Uniswap, and we're providing liquidity on Uniswap, and then we hedge back onto the WooTrade network. So for example, if we're providing on the ETH USDT pair, and somebody swaps USDT for ETH, then obviously we would then go back onto the WooTrade network and do a very similar trade, allowing us to be market neutral, but still allowing us to capture that flow. So the way we would work with these DeFi platforms is all very different. Like Uniswap would be passive, right? It doesn't even have to be a partnership. You just use the technology to do it. With other ones, it could be more direct. So that's kind of how things are shaping up there.
Very cool. It's exciting.
Yeah. Any other questions? It looks like Chris also joined.
I'm excited to hear from the man Ran. I just would love, we got a nice rollout of everything that's kind of going on product wise, and I would just love to hear a little bit more about how the team is growing and what that's going to look like maybe for the next 6 to 12 months, what the goal is as far as the team and hiring and what that looks like.
Yeah, I can speak a bit about that. We're growing quite fast. We're trying to hire many different roles, from community management, public relations, marketing, business development, to front end, back end development, smart contract development, UI UX design. It's just like a whole gamut of HR, of roles. We need more people on the tech team. This is one for the community. If any of you are interested in working with us in some capacity, we'd be happy to have a conversation. Essentially, we're hiring for everything, and we're quite flexible. We recently had some great guys from the community join us, and they're all over the place in the world. So then we're very welcoming to all those who are interested in being a bigger part of the WooTrade ecosystem. And I think many of you guys are already quite involved, on Twitter and in Telegram, and you keep close tabs on the progress. So for anyone interested in getting more involved with us, we're happy to have a conversation.
Are you finding? I was just listening to a podcast and some of the projects talking about how they are really struggling to find talent in the space, and especially on the developmental side. Is that an issue that you guys are running into?
Well, I'll tell you, we have I think 5 people on the HR team. That's including Kronos, right? So then, some of these, to increase synergies, we share some of these roles like HR and finance. It's definitely difficult to expand fast and to find the best people, but we're getting there. And then the community is very helpful. For technical talent, a lot of these guys we find from the traditional space, whether it's trading related or development. But for blockchain engineers, it's a bit more difficult, right? Because it takes time for someone who is adept in Java or C++ to learn Solidity or Rust or these programming languages in blockchain. But then we generally find a lot of like C++ or Python developers or traders from traditional internet companies or hedge funds or whatnot. So we're getting there. I mean, in total, WooTrade has about 40 people now around the world, and Kronos, the sister company, has about 60. So then we work hand in hand quite often. So then we're about 100 people in we have 3 offices, and then a bunch of guys who are in Thailand, Canada, Philippines, all over the place.
Awesome. Thanks, Rand. Keep it up.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah, it was a good question. Very focused on the project itself, so if anyone else wants to jump in now, it'd be a good time. Yeah, I definitely, expanding on what Rand was talking about there, also what he left out was like people with legal backgrounds, specifically related to fintech compliance and things like that is another area. But surprisingly, our community, a lot of the people have come from very diverse backgrounds, and we've actually been able to see a lot of talent within our community itself. So hopefully that's something that keeps going, and we'll be able to pull more from that as a resource.
So I think I saw the other day. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I think I saw the other day y'all put up some job listings, and I think that they all said the location was maybe Taiwan. Do y'all hire remotely and things like that? Because you just mentioned also that you have people working all over.
Yeah, I think it very much depends on the role. Like obviously for like more developmental roles, there's a lot of things that have to be done as a team, right? Because you're constantly working together, and that one, I think a lot of the development roles are centered more in Taiwan, where there's a lot of talent. And then in terms of like developmental roles or roles that are more like specific to a region, then obviously that doesn't have the same restrictions. So like I'm based right now in Shanghai because there's a lot of clients and traders who are around this area. But obviously, like as we expand into other regions like Southeast Asia and Europe and North America, South America, it's not going to make much sense to have somebody in Taiwan to filling those roles. So that's something that we can be much more flexible on.
Okay, cool.
All right, do we have any more questions from the community? Not me, but we got one here. The General Wu, you're now able to speak.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so I just want to get a bit of visibility on the business development side. I know that one of the ways that WooTrade scales is by onboarding more market makers and trading institutions. So when you guys go out and cooperate with them, do other market makers hold back when they know that Kronos is bootstrapping WooX's liquidity?
I think that's a good one for Rand to handle.
Do other market makers hold back for WooTrade's liquidity?
No, it's more of because Chronos right now is the primary source of liquidity. So I was wondering if other market makers see this as a competition, because there's a possibility that Chronos might be trading against them.
Right. So,
Actually, no. Hi, I'm Audrey.
Well, to be clear, WooTrade is meant to provide, the deepest liquidity and the cheapest liquidity for traders in general. But it's meant to service more the lower frequency type of traders, like our average everyday trader, the day traders, and exchanges, more of the long-term guys. We're not. WooTrade isn't meant to service the super, what we call toxic traders, or the high frequency traders. So the typical high frequency trader wouldn't want to trade on WooTrade. There would be things that they would typically want from other exchanges that they wouldn't get on WooTrade, like faster speeds than everybody else, colocation, or under the table fees. So then that's not available for them. So from that perspective, then I think in generally high frequency traders wouldn't want to be trading in the same way that everyone else trades on WooTrade. But we are entertaining with the idea of having more market makers on the making side to support WooTrade liquidity. So we are in talks with other market makers, and we know them quite well. And they can provide more liquidity for WooTrade if we get to a scale that's in need of that. So I mean, again, it's all about providing the best liquidity, the deepest liquidity, and the cheapest fees for traders. So the high frequency guys are more on the market making end than taking liquidity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess I have another question, and that it's more on the futures trading side. Personally, I'm a futures trader. I don't really trade spot. So I was wondering, how does WooTrade provide zero fees on futures trading? Because if I pull up my leverage all the way up to 15x or 20x, the fees increase proportionally too. So is WooTrade going to offer zero fees on that as well for higher leverages?
Right, that's a good question. I mean, the ethos of WooTrade is to make trading as cheap as possible, right? I think people trade for various reasons, and once they trade a certain size or a certain frequency, the costs really add up, and that's the whole ethos of WooTrade. Whether it's trading fees, the commissions itself, or slippage, we want to make that as zero as possible. I can't guarantee, because there's no futures yet. So I don't think I can guarantee that it will be zero, but then we'll aim to lower it to as low as possible. And I think in the grand scheme of things, it's all doable. Nothing's really impossible. For the Woo5 pools, currently the fees have been lowered from 30 basis points or 20 basis points, which is the average in DeFi trading, to 5 basis points. And that was more, when we first experimented with BSC. And at 5 basis points, there's still ample profitability for WooTrade. So, I mean, the next step for us is to try to lower that to as close to zero as possible, right? And that's going to be the case for any of the pools that we open up on. Right now, we're on ETH through 0x and V3, Uniswap V3, and that's more. We're testing there, and then whether it's Polygon or Solana, we're always going to have this simple goal of providing the best liquidity at the cheapest cost. And sometimes that might might not able to hit zero, right? But then we're certainly going to try as hard as possible to get there.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about how like each DeFi protocol has different challenges. So it's something that we have to approach it from a design perspective and figure out how can we get the fees as close to or as low as possible. And yeah, I think we'll have to give more clarity on the future side because that's something that is being designed now. And as far as I know, it's pretty far along in the design phase. But yeah, we don't want to commit to something and then 1 week later have to go back and say, well, actually, it's not like that. So that's why sometimes this sort of information hasn't been disclosed yet. But yeah, that's some background on how we're trying to do things. It looks like we have some special guest. I noticed that Jack just joined the stream. I don't know if anyone else wants to ask any. Oh, we have someone requesting here, so I'll bring him up as a speaker. X.Woo. I might have to start removing some of the old speakers just so we have space for new ones, because I think Twitter has some limitations. So don't be offended if I remove you. All right, X.Woo, you're live.
Oh, cool. I just had a quick question. Who do you guys, Rand, and everybody else that works on Woo, consider to be your most formidable opponents within this same niche of providing liquidity?
Rand, do you have a formidable opponent?
Or are there any?
I think for different aspects of the business, there are, but I don't see anyone doing exactly what we're doing, like connecting liquidity and trying to offer the cheapest liquidity on all platforms. I mean, like there's exchanges, right? So then WooX is an exchange. Obviously, there's a lot of competitors. The WooFi pools it's almost like a DEX, and obviously there's competitors there. The stuff that the WooTrade network, WooTrade, which services a lot of exchanges. There's a few guys doing this. Well, actually, there's not. I would say there's not really a competitor in that space. Well, recently there's one. There's OTC desks as well, right? So then that's kind of a competitor in some ways. But to put it all together, it's I haven't seen anyone trying to do what we're doing. I mean, the whole idea behind WooTrade is if you were to place a trade on MXC or Gate.io or Uniswap or like Serum maybe later, or any DeFi or CeFi platform, you place one trade, and it's going to be WooTrade behind it, right, with the liquidity, and it'll be the cheapest trade. Whoever's connected to the network, it's going to be the cheapest trade and the deepest liquidity that you will experience. That's the overall goal for WooTrade. I don't really see anyone doing that at the moment.
Yeah, and yeah, just to follow up on that, I mean, part of it is because we do hit so many verticals within the industry that, like in exchange, like Rand said, might be a competitor, but then that's for the WooX. But then when you put it to the WooTrade network, they could end up being a client. So there's like some phases where they would compete, but other phases where we can work together. And I think, our value proposition is sufficiently strong to allow people to overlook that we might be competing in some areas and still want to work with us. So we've yet to have someone like reject a phone call or a meeting on the grounds that we might be competing. Like everyone's willing to get on the phone with us and talk, and then they're usually able to move forward from there because they can see how we can bring value to their business model or their users. So yeah, I mean, in the business of aggregation, anytime that there's a competitor, it's also an opportunity to aggregate as well. So we're very open-minded towards that, and we want everybody to succeed. because the more that they're succeeding, the bigger this industry will grow. And then it's just more trading volume, more liquidity, and it just everything is better, right? It's a bigger pie. Everybody has a bigger slice. And that's kind of how we approach things.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It seemed like that was the idea. I just wanted to make sure that I had the proper understanding of it. It feels like Wu is like Akira from the movie Akira.
Okay. Yeah. There's definitely not anyone that we stay up at night worrying about because everything is an opportunity, right?
Awesome. Thank y'all.
Thank you for the question. I believe it's Udiver. You're now live.
Cool. Yeah, so I had a question about MEV. So, like different, especially for ETH, MEV is like kind of very notorious, but for other chains as well. Like, what are the thoughts behind that? Like, is there a way to protect the traders or any future plans?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so we've experienced front running before while experimenting on the different chains. And right now, honestly, we don't have a good solution for that. But there's certain dexes like Dodo, who we work with on BSC, they have something in place to try to prevent that. And there's various platforms that we're talking to that have more preventative measures for front running. If we were to build a DEX in the future, which is not out of the question, that's something that we'd look a lot more into. But currently, in terms of like the Wu-Fi pools on BSC and other places, we're able to at least prevent ourselves from getting front run through making. But we are thinking about having coming up with a solution for the large amount of costs that goes to miners in these trades.
Cool. Yeah, I like maybe like a blog post or something like later down the line would be like cool to look into, because like WooTrade does have to solve more issues with MEV than like the more platforms or chains that they integrate with. And so yeah, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think I approved somebody else who might have had a question, but I don't know if they joined. So if there's anyone else who wants to jump on, linked and loaded, I definitely extended an invite to you earlier. I don't know if you had a question. Requests. All right, we got CJ and Michael. I'm going to approve both of you, and you guys kind of fight over who connects first. Let's go with Michael. It says you can now speak. Hi, Michael. We sure can.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I'm not a high volume trader. I'm just an investor in trade. In terms of staking, so the best options that I've seen so far are AscendX, and from what I understand, the staking, there's a partnership with WooTrade, and then I've seen for the beta users on WooX, it's also available in the application. I haven't been invited to that yet, though. Is there a preferred, like for the average user, investor, do you just recommend go with AscendX or one of the exchanges that provide staking, or directly through the WooX when it becomes available?
Ryan, do you want to take this one?
Is Morpheus here? Morpheus is a better person to answer that. I think generally staking, I think it's pretty confusing now, right? There's various places that you can stake, and then we made a bot in the community called so then that bot gives some indication of where to stake, and I think later in the future there will be more and more places to stake Wu tokens, and what some of the ideas that we're working on is. I mean, these are just ideas currently, but like vault products, right? Either on WooX. WooX will offer staking, but so the staking program now is still not the final staking program on the beta. So later on, you're expected to be rewarded more for trading. Rewarded more in tokens for trading more.
Right. Okay.
So then the yields might be different if you trade more versus less. But in general, I think people are confused about, people are trying to figure out where's the best place to stake, right? So some of the ideas that we're thinking about are vaults on WooX and in a decentralized vault, so that you can just stake your Woo there and then forget about it, and it'll optimize for you.
Okay.
Right? So I think that's a product that people will want. Yeah.
Yeah, I can add something here.
Sure.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Sure. Okay, so I'm Morpheus. I'm the product manager at Trade. So based on your question, I think it depends on like how you view yourself as a holder or like a trader. Because currently what we are doing is like, because we found that actually right now we have different staking programs, and for the different staking program, like what Ren said, like actually there are different APYs and different yields. But currently what we are trying to develop is something like, because WooX is kind of like we want to target it to be a trading platform first.
Yeah.
So for the staking program, first version of staking program on WooX, it's like we want to transfer it into something that we can encourage people or users on WooX, and they can be more actively to trade on WooX. So I think if you see yourself as a kind of like a holder or investor, then we have several other options for staking. Like you can just go for DeFi and Uniswap, this kind of staking, because if you want to have like passive yield, then there will be a good direction. But if you think you believe you are the one who can just actively trade and you can just make yourself pretty engaged with WAX, then that's another direction that we will use this kind of staking program to help you to maximize your staking and maximize your yield.
Okay, great. One more quick question. I know you guys you participated in hosting a luncheon for PayPal just recently. Was that a one-off event, or is there anything more to that relationship?
I knew this question was going to come up. But yeah, I mean, like, without speaking specifically to PayPal, I mean, we want to be thought of in this space as, we always talk about like thought leadership and people who are in like the top tier of this space. And we are. I mean, when you look at Kronos, like the amount of the volume that they do, that they should be having conversations. So with these type of institutions, any sort of relationship building takes time, and you do it by being in conversations and supporting them. So this luncheon was purely on the, they're trying to educate their employees across the entire, corporation on things like DeFi and cryptocurrency. And so that's what it was. But it was a chance to find out, what their needs are, what their strategies are. And so this is not a one-off in the sense that we're only doing it with PayPal. We're doing it with other companies as well. But this is where we want to be positioned in the space. And eventually, if we keep doing that, it should lead to more tangible relationships, I guess. So yeah, without saying too much, I mean, that's kind of how we are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect. Great stuff, guys. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I think, Jack joined as a speaker, the CEO. I don't know if he wanted to say anything or if he's just going to help us answer questions, but either way, very welcome addition. And,
hey, thanks.
Hey, there you are, Jack. Mo Diamond and CJ Wheeler, I also added as a speaker. If you guys had a question, feel free to jump in there.
Hello?
Hey, we can hear you.
Hi, yeah, thanks. I was going to ask about the updated staking as well. The specific was the multiplier related to challenges. If you could elaborate on what that means.
Sure. I think I can answer this one. So I think for the multiplier, so I think like what I said, like currently we want to build a staking program for Wax. So it's like exclusively to tell the users that if you engage more on Wax, then you will get more and more yield. So the multiplier will be like something like we will have a base rate. And the base rate, you can imagine like the base rate is like we would just change the base rate. It's like fluctuated based on the supply and demand of token staking on Wax. But like based on the base rate, so that means like if there are a lot of people staking on Wax, then the base rate will be lower. But like if not that, like if you are early adopter and you believe in Wax, then you do the base rate will be pretty high. So that's our concept. But like the multiplier is something like except the base rate, we want to give it another layer of multiplier. So if you for example, like right now we have 2 challenges, and eventually like we will have different challenges, so it depends on what kind of activities you have on Wax. Perhaps if it's like you are actively trading on Wax, or if you are actively like trying a lot of features on Wax, or you are actively like response to our customer service pretty actively. So I think this is how we have this multiplier to make it another layer to boost your yield. So currently, if like for the basic 2 challenges we have, the first one is the duration of staking. So if you stake token on Wax for a long time, for example, like past like 3 months or even 6 months, and then you will get another layer of multiplier. So this multiplier will multiply your base yield, base rate. And another challenge will be like how many trades you make per month. So for example, like if you trade more this month, like you trade maybe more than 40 trades, then you will get another layer of multiplier. So eventually we will have the base rate and multiple the different multipliers. So this is something that we want to use this kind of way to encourage people and users on Wax to actively engage and just kind of like use Wax so that you can try to get the maximum yield based on the staking program.
Yeah, I want to jump in on what Morpheus said. Thank you, Morpheus. That's a good explanation. I know a lot of people in the back of their mind, they're probably thinking, wait, if I don't trade, am I going to be getting screwed on the yield? So like the multiplier, I don't think is going to have so much of an impact, but it will have just a slight impact, and that is mainly to try to raise the engagement level. But like Rand was talking about in the last one, like we're also developing vaults, other products that are going to be more yield generating. So if that's someone's primary goal is to just generate yield, like that product will exist as well, right? It exists right now. If you want to go into Bancor and you stake on that pool, you get 20% APY right out of the gate. So the 20% APY without the fees on top of that, right? So it's even higher. And yeah, this is something that we're very cognizant of. And we want to create products that tailor to different subsections. And obviously, WEX is a trading platform. We want to encourage people to trade and to log in and to check the latest features, right? So, it's not going to be like, just to summarize real quick, it's not going to be like someone's earning like 3 times or 4 times more yield just because they trade more. It's going to be very fair, but there will be certain things people do to get a boost. Yeah, that's probably the best way to sum it up. Is that what you wanted to know?
Yeah, that answers all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. CJ, I think it's time. Did you have a question for us?
I do. Thank you, Ben. You can hear me all right?
Well, we can hear you all right, but I keep muting my phone, so it's
Okay, cool. Making sure, just first time speaking. Hey, I had to miss the first few minutes, so apologies if you covered this already, but I'm asking the same question from round one of these little town halls. So I'm curious about what you see as the biggest threats to the success of Woo, and what steps you guys are taking to mitigate them.
Interesting. Maybe Rand and both Jack can both put some thoughts on this, what we see as the biggest threats.
Sure, that's a really good question. I mean, I guess the biggest threat would be something that's more systematic that happens with the industry. Like crypto trading volumes go down by 90%, which is not impossible during a bear market, but the general trend is that it's going up, right? Although it's cyclical every few years, and valuations are going up and volumes are going up. It will be something related to that, I believe. In terms of competition, I think we're quite unique in that we, although it may seem like we have competitors, we tend to work with everyone because everyone needs liquidity, right? The exchanges really need us. I mean, they're our biggest clients on the 2B side. And then traders obviously need us. And then, the decentralized world need liquidity even more. It's all fragmented all over the place. And layer 2s and all these other chains, Polygon, Solana, that are gaining traction, it's like we need, cross-chain liquidity, which is kind of what we're doing for centralized exchanges and now more decentralized exchanges. So then to unify that liquidity and to be chain agnostic, so it doesn't matter where the traders end up going, whether, if BSC suffers a hack, BSC to Solana, let's say, and then we set up there. As long as we're on, we're agnostic and where the pools are, as long as we are where people are, where traders are, we're quite hedged in that way. So I don't see like huge risks for us as long as the industry doesn't go down. I don't see many people or anyone really doing what we're doing. I mean, the idea of connecting liquidity across all the CeFi and DeFi venues. I don't see any huge risks for us aside from crypto going down. And then, we're all in the industry because we believe in the rise of the blockchain and crypto. So,
I got a follow-up question.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I appreciate the context. Toyota has a concept called death threats when they work on projects. Like, okay, if this were to die, what's going to kill it? So it's useful to hear you speak to what you think is like, what keeps you up at night? Like, why wouldn't this work? So the broader market as a whole is certainly something to worry about. But yeah, I think long-term trends are all positive there.
Awesome. Thank you, CJ.
I think there's a few ways to slice that problem. I think there are certain things that we can control, and then there's a bunch of stuff that we can't control. So I think how the team spends our time is mostly thinking about what areas of expertise can we develop, and what areas of expertise do we have currently that we need to bolster. And then how do you package that into a solution for our users and our ecosystem, right? How do you deliver more value in more interesting ways? That this is how we tend to think. And then we try to build a team in such a way that we can experiment with a few different things at the same time and very quickly and cheaply, so that we don't really miss any of the bigger trends. As opposed to thinking like what could kill us all the time and like competition, we tend to focus on the former.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's the CEO, in case anyone's wondering. That's Jack. So, we didn't give much of an introduction, but yeah, great. Moon Up, you had a question. I think now's a good time. Perfect.
Yeah. So can you guys hear me?
Yep.
So just wanted to know. So did the main market downturn catch you guys sort of off guard, and did that impact the business or just your kind of leaderboard positions?
Did the May market downturn catch us off guard? I think that's more of a Kronos question than a WooTrade question, because I mean we're developing the infrastructure, so that I don't think there's any problem there. I don't know, Bran or Jack, do you guys want to handle this from a Kronos perspective?
I didn't hear the question. I was breaking up.
He asked if the May market downturn caught us off guard. I think he's referring to like May 18th when Bitcoin went below 30,000.
Yeah, Jack. Capitulation soon. I guess that's the discretionary trader in me coming out, and I just had to say that because I felt like the market was just too crazy and it was bottoming soon. So that's what I meant by that tweet. Of course, none of that is financial advice. So with respect to Kronos, the more volatility there is, the more trading volume there is. Usually the firm does better as a whole. And then for WooTrade, all the systems were up and running. We had a liquidity issue with our own token on the platform that we've since been able to identify issues with and mitigate. So it's turning out to be like a very good situation for us that this happened in the beta. But it definitely showed that our system is actually quite stable and robust. There's no, real trading issues or scaling issues.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. I just have one other question, sort of like, so how do you guys decide what assets to add to WooX?
Yeah, that's a good one. Probably Ben could answer that better.
Sure. Yeah, I don't mind. We have someone on our team. We actually have a small team that is kind of in charge of this, but someone on our team who develops, more of a quantitative metric for which tokens have the most demand. Because obviously we want to list tokens that are being traded, but then we also want tokens that are being sustainable. So every time some meme coin shows up, we don't want to just list it and then in 2 months nobody's trading it and we have to delist it either. And also take on that risk while that's going on. So we actually have a metric for determining which tokens make the short list, and then it's just finding out which ones make the most sense. And that also includes people we're working with, traders on WooX, people right here in the community call, the B2B clients. All this is taken into consideration. So every time someone goes in the Telegram and says, "Hey, when are you going to list XXX coin?" that is factored in as well. So the one consideration that we have is obviously we need to be able to hedge risk on the token. So it needs to have like a futures option somewhere, and that allows our flow trading team to manage the risk a little bit better. And obviously we aggregate liquidity, so it makes sense that it needs to be on a main exchange, right? Otherwise we're not aggregating anything. So it's really hard to bring that WooTrade brand of liquidity to the platform. So yeah, all those things together work, but we're very open to adding new assets. We never charge projects a fee to do that, because we want their project to succeed. We want people to trade their assets, and yeah, that's the philosophy, I guess.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And thanks for all the support on Twitter lately. That doesn't go unnoticed.
No problem. Anytime.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think we have Woo Nitsa. I think you've been up here for a while. Do you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Hey, thanks, Ben. Question for the team. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So it's a two-part question, if you guys don't mind. So I know the token burn is a big part of your marketing, besides the zero fees and all that. can you guys provide some more context or information on how that's determined? I know you guys are talking about 50% of the revenue. Is there any sort of like transparency with that report, or or is it because all we see on the monthly reports are just X amount of tokens burned, but there's no way for us to figure out how that was determined.
Yeah, this is a good question. I think probably Rand would be best to answer this because he handles a lot of this. Rand, did you hear the question?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
My connection is not very good. In regards to token burn, it's quite straightforward, actually. We just figure out how much we made, how much WooTrade made in the past month, and then our internal trading team just buys the tokens in the open market. It could be on WooX or it could be on Huobi. The details of execution we can't really reveal, right? Otherwise, people can game the system. But they buy it over a period of time, and then we usually execute the burn around the 10th. So then, what you see is the amount of tokens getting burned, but the price at which it was purchased is, it's not transparent. It happened in across a period of time. Like typically, I can't speak too much more about how it's getting bought, but the burn does happen every month.
We've discussed making it more transparent. So this is something we want to do, but we just need to find a way to do it where it's not, people can't game the system and it affect how it works.
Okay, cool. Fair enough. And second part to that question. So I know like other projects like let's say Uniswap and SushiSwap, their token price is kind of tied to how much fees they're generating, month over month if they're increasing their fees. Typically price, increases with that. Obviously, it's all market wide, but would you guys say it's fair that the volume you guys push through all your systems that kind of determines the success of WooTrade? Is that fair to say?
Well, the P&L generated is a function of the volume and a function of how much P&L is generated per trade, right? So volume certainly comes into play, but then we segregate that volume into, what we call toxic and more non-toxic flow. So with toxic flow, like other high-frequency traders, WooTrade doesn't necessarily make much money, or we might even lose money on some of those volume. So the idea is to service the guys who really, we're not scalpers, right? Like high-frequency traders are kind of, bad term would be scalpers. They're finding mispricings one exchange versus the next. They're using very advanced telco to communicate between exchanges, and they're capitalizing on these opportunities, right? Whereas if you're a trader and you just want to make a trade, you want the best price and the best execution possible for the least amount of fees. These are kind of the traders that we want to service. And that includes a lot of the exchanges who just want better liquidity for their books, whether it's decentralized or centralized exchanges. We don't necessarily want to service the high-frequency traders who are kind of arbitraging all over the place. So volume is a function of it, but the basis point per trade that's generated also matters a lot. So what we'd expect is as there's more users, whether it's on WooX or Woo5 Pools or WooTrade Network, the volume would increase naturally, right? And then there would be more network effects. So I'd expect at, say, $1 billion in volume, assuming it's all very non-toxic volume, And as our liquidity sources increase for WooTrade, the per basis point P&L per unit of volume would increase as well. So then, there's scaling effects. There's economies of scale that happens when we increase the volume.
To echo Rand's point, basically we're not like other exchanges which solve for the highest volume, right? So if you look at all of our incentives, our pricing, it's not trying to maximize the amount of volume that goes through the exchange. If we were to do that, then we would prioritize the high frequency traders above everybody else because they trade the most, right? But for us, it's about providing the best platform for traders out there, right? And what type of traders? Mostly the manual traders and the slower frequency guys. So if we can provide the best solution for those guys, then it opens so many more possibilities for other kind of products like copy trading and whatnot. Because if you can get the best traders on this platform, then you can structure a bunch of different interesting products that actually have positive return profiles even when the market is going down. And this is what we're aiming to do, right? Provide that type of a value regardless of market conditions.
Awesome, thanks guys.
Jack, really quick to speak to that. Do you guys have a realistic time frame for getting a loose, platform in the United States?
No, the U.S. is not is not on the roadmap right now. There's so much regulation, and it's just such a hassle to deal with right now. For us, it's about servicing. It's about servicing globally, and wherever the low-hanging fruits are right now, and the U.S. is just totally overregulated. We could revisit that maybe like next year.
Great, thank you. A little depressing, but thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I know how you feel.
Can I jump in with a question on the business development side?
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, so I understand that the Zealous Rhinos program was introduced for institutions to stake their Wu tokens. So I'm just wondering if there is any clarity on that. Are there any developments? Are there any challenges in getting these institutions to stake their Wu tokens for fee reduction?
Okay, institutional staking. Yeah, there's definitely challenges. I think everything is like a trial and error, right? So we had the Rhino program, which worked out pretty well when token prices were low, like 3 cents, 5 cents. But now, when token prices went to $1, then the institutional guys are like, wow, I need to stake like $15 million in here to get lower fees, and it didn't make sense for them anymore. So then that's getting redesigned into something that's more okay, I'm not going to talk about it too much about it now because it's not revealed, but into something that's more sensible. So then that's happening with the WooX staking program as well. So we're taking the approach that we're willing to admit that there were faults perhaps or things that were overlooked in the previous programs, and we want to just improve it over time so that it makes sense for all the users. But it certainly became a challenge for some of those guys when the token price went up. But I think we have pretty good customer loyalty. And the 2B guys, most of them just continue to stake. Only 1 or 2 guys have decided to, I think 2 who have decided to unstake some of the tokens, not necessarily all of the tokens, because prices went up.
Yeah, But to be clear, when they do that, they keep using the network, and then they start paying fees, which the fees actually are more valuable than perhaps staking the token. So either way, there were benefits. It's just two different ways of going about it.
Yeah, I have a question on the governance function of the Wu token. So I think still nowadays the governance of the Wu network is still quite centralized. Do you have a clear roadmap for how you become more decentralized and give more governance rights to the Wu community?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's something we really want to do. Not just for, decentralizing for decentralizing the sake of it, but also because it gives us more flexibility to create decentralized products from a regulatory standpoint. So it's something that's very important. I know Jack mentioned that about the previous question. We need to find more ways to exist within regulatory frameworks, and decentralization is definitely one of them. Do we have a clear roadmap? I don't think we do right now, how that's going to work, but we're actively exploring it. We're working with, we're talking with a lot of our partners who are in the DeFi space and have uncovered, they've gone down this road and they have experience. So we're putting all this together, and then probably we'll come up with something. But it's definitely going to happen. We want the Wu token to be a vital part of governing a lot of the decentralized aspects of WooTrade. And I think that's something we can push on to get more clarity.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. We only have time for a few more questions here. I've approved Manny and Big Apple, but they seem to have issues connecting. Big Apple says you can speak now. You want to go ahead and...
Hey guys, just had a quick question for Jack. So as you approach, some of the more institutional and asset management groups, AKA hedge funds, are you having one-on-one conversations with some of those bigger managers, the Galaxies of the world, the Polychain of the world, and those kind of larger crypto managers in order to get them to engage and trade via the product?
Yeah, really good question, but I think it's more for Ran, who's heading up business development. He manages all the relationships with the institutions.
Got it.
Sure. Good question. So we do have, out of the guys you mentioned, we do have working relationships with one or more of them. And we are trying to work with a lot of the crypto and non-crypto institutional players. The crypto ones being guys like Three Arrows, who invested in us, QCP. These are the more crypto native guys, and then the sort of hybrid ones are like Galaxy, like you mentioned, right? So then now we're trying to approach more of the traditional guys who are getting into crypto. So these are the PayPals, the investment banks, the Fidelities of the world. Everyone wants into this market. That's been very apparent from the conversations that we've had. They're just trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure out how to exactly get into crypto, what services to provide, whether it's trading, whether it's custody, whether it's investment products, for their TradFi customers who all want in, essentially because of like Elon Musk and whatnot, right? And prices going up. So we're trying to work with them on that. There's obviously many challenges there, like regulations, licenses, and such, right? To work with, say, a guy like Goldman. But I can see the two worlds merging. And these guys they're interested in DeFi. Banks are interested in DeFi yields, and DeFi protocols are trying to be a bank. So the worlds are emerging, and we're certainly. I think you can expect to see some partnerships in the near future.
Cool. And so when you, what should we think about what a partnership means with, like, you know, a guy like Mike Novogratz, who's kind of a kingpin in the space and running a very large hedge fund and asset manager. When you guys, you know, do engage and you have dialogue, I'm sure, what is kind of the end goal, or what do you see coming from that in the near or medium term?
Well, Novogratz, they have many businesses, right? They've been on a shopping spree lately. So in terms of trading, potentially they can trade on WooTrade. They have very cheap access to capital, right? So then, you know, to offer leverage, right, to WooTrade or WooTrade users, these are all potential opportunities. You know, they bought BitGo, right? So then in terms of custody, right now we're using Kobo custody, but we, you know, users from around the world, they trust different custodians. So that's another option. So I think in terms of working with, and they're more like a institutional platform or exchange or prime broker. And we have the deepest relationships with exchanges, whether they service retail customers or institutional. So yeah, there's many ways that we can work with these types of people. Even you know, WooTrade, you know, right now everything's focused on liquidity. But like Jack mentioned earlier, we will have generating products that'll come out, whether on WooX and on DeFi, whether it's you know, it's simple things like farming to more sophisticated like asset management type of strategies, like with Chronos, like the yields that Chronos can generate. These things can be available to people on WooFi, on WooX, and perhaps through Galaxy to their customers, right? I mean, they're selling some of their investment products through JP Morgan. So I think, you know, these are some of the things that, ways that we potentially can work together.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. We're getting here. It's been over an hour, so I think we probably need to wrap it up. But yeah, really appreciate all the questions from the community and all the support on Twitter and just getting involved. It's definitely very much appreciated from the team. So if we didn't get to you today, or you still have some things that are bugging you about you want to, you know, ask, then definitely find us on Telegram or Twitter, and we'll try to get back to you through that way. But I think, yeah, we'll all be back again to do this pretty regularly. I think about once a month is a good time frame. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thanks everyone for joining us, and I guess we'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.